Hello and welcome to this Shalom World News special broadcast coming to you from the heart of the Vatican. I'm Maura Murphy, and today the eyes and prayers of the world turn toward the man who will now shepherd over 1.3 billion Catholics. In this historic moment, we pause to reflect on what this new chapter means for the whole Church and what we hope it might bring. To help us unpack this moment of profound significance, I'm joined by Father Michael Collins, a priest of the Archdiocese of Dublin in Ireland and renowned author. In fact, very much a Vatican expert, as he has written numerous biographies on the last 5 popes and also on the papacy. You've had the great honour of being here for both the conclave of Pope Benedict XVI and for Pope Francis. Can I ask, what, having studied our latest popes also, what do you see as the type of leader the Church needs for such a time as this? What qualities should the Cardinals look for in the newly elected Pope?
Well, that's a very good question. In fact, that's a question that most people overlook because all the commentators and the journalists and media people are trying to pick the name of the person who's about to appear on St. Peter's balcony. But you're quite right, it's what's needed at the moment. And I'd say the Cardinals are looking at two things. They're not looking for somebody who's going to be Francis stroke 2. No, they're looking for somebody who's going to be Peter's successor. And you're quite right, they're looking for who's going to be able to confront the modern world. And in fact, Cardinal Ray, at the homily on the opening Mass of the election, made that point at the very end. He said, we're looking for unity, not simply uniformity, but we also want somebody who's going to address the world to help them with all the problems, because as we know, the world is not completely a happy place. There's a lot of disruption, there are many wars across the globe, there's a lot of fighting, there's a lot of hostility, and I think the message of Jesus is that message of peace, of understanding, of tolerance, of correction as well. And sometimes when we're weak and we trip and fall, that we can be picked up by Jesus and he can walk with us again and he can encourage us to make that step forward, maybe just to get us over 1 or 2 trips that we've had and move forward. So I think that's really the Pope that we're looking for, somebody who understands that, a sincere, trusting, honourable person who's going to work to the best of their ability. We were lucky we had Pope Francis because he was somebody who had 2 pet loves, and that was one for the migrant and the other for the poor, and he saw them almost interacting with each other because so often migrants are badly treated. And for example, he went to Marseille some time ago, maybe I think about 2 years ago, and many migrants have been coming over from Africa over the last number of years, hoping to get a new life in Europe because they think that's better than maybe staying in Africa. And he was criticised by many politicians and many people who said, we've too many people in Europe, so keep them at the borders, don't let them in. And anyway, they don't have their proper documentation, and only people who've got the documentation should be allowed to come in. And Pope Francis said that's nonsense, because he's a very plain talker. He said that's nonsense. You expect them to come with all their papers in a plastic bag and they've just come from a shipwreck. Don't be ridiculous. So he wasn't that rude, let's say, but he spoke the language and everybody got the message. There was no politician who could ever say, oh, I didn't really understand what he was talking about.
Father Michael, many people know the most obvious signal, which is when the smoke colour is white, we know that we have a new Holy Father. But that process from seeing the white smoke ascend, knowing that the cardinals inside have reached their 2/3 majority, and then that window maybe of 45 minutes or an hour and the new Pope is announced and revealed on the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica, what happens in that window of time with the newly elected Pope? What is the process and the ritual?
That's right. Well, it's very exciting because as soon as the 89 votes have been reached, the Cardinals know what's happening because most of them have been keeping a tally, and an applause will break out in the chapel. And in fact, very often the people who are outside the doors of the Sistine Chapel know, oh, we've got a result. It hasn't been made official, the doors haven't opened, but they know that they've just about arrived at a conclusion. The next step is very important because the Cardinal dean has to go to the elected pontiff and say, do you accept your election, your canonical election? Now the cardinal at that stage, who's just been elected pope, can say no. There's no problem. He could just say, well, I'm really not the person that you need. And that has happened on occasion over the past 2,000 years. And then they've got to go back and start all over again. But fortunately, most times, I would imagine that the Pope would say, yes, I do. In that case, a document has to be signed to verify and to be witnessed that the election has taken place according to the law. And the Cardinal Dean says, what name would you like to be known by? And the Pope then will change his name. Now that originally happened in the 6th century because there was a Pope whose name was Mercury, which is a pagan name, so he decided that wouldn't be suitable, so he changed his name to John in honor of a previous Pope who had died just some years beforehand. So the next step is the new Pope will be brought into a little room to the left of the altar in the Sistine Chapel, sometimes called the room or the Chamber of Tears. That's because so often they've more or less broken down and the whole emotion has hit them and the realization of the way their life is now about to change. And the tailor will meet them. He'll change them into a white garment, which is the color of the Pope's. And then the Pope will come back into the Sistine Chapel and he'll receive the oath of fidelity of the cardinals. Technically it's called the obeisance of the cardinals, during which they will kneel, kiss his ring and promise fidelity for the rest of their lives to him. At that point, at some point there, the Cardinal Proto-Deacon will leave the Sistine Chapel and he'll make his way down through the Sala Ducale over to the Hall of Benedictions, and then the doors of the loggia will open and the new cardinal, the cardinal will announce the new Pope. And he will start with the words, Annuncio vobis gaudium magnum, habemus papam. I announce to you a great joy, we have a Pope. Qui sibi imposuit. And then he'll say the name of the cardinal who has taken the name, and there'll be silence and everybody will be waiting. And as soon as probably they hear the first name, if it's Peter, if it's Robert, if it's John, whatever, many people will say, oh, it must be Cardinal so-and-so and so-and-so. So those 3, 4, 5 seconds are electric. And then we'll get the second name of the Pope. And at that point, we know he's going to be named. What name will he take? Some people are saying he's going to take Francis II. Some are saying he's going to take John Paul III. Some people are saying he might be Paul the VII. Well, we'll just have to wait and see.
Thank you so much, Father Michael. Thank you for joining us, and please stay tuned to Shalom World News.
This is Shalom World News.